Hey guys, welcome to the WWE podcast. We've got a long-form audio show for you today as Michael Gross and I, in detail, cover Clash of Champions that aired last night on the WWE Network. We also answer your questions and go on a couple of rants. You're not going to want to miss this one. Let's get everything started right after this. Are you in a position where you need to sell your home? Perhaps you're facing financial difficulties, or you're facing a foreclosure, a divorce, or maybe you're just relocating because of retirement. Maybe there are some other debt issues and you just need to sell your home. Well, here is a great solution for you. And that solution is Bright Realty Investment. They are a leading real estate solutions company, and their mission is to work hand in hand with all parties to handle every situation with the utmost professionalism and care. So if you're in a particularly stressful financial situation right now and you need to protect your credit, then don't waste another minute. Head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com. That's brightrealtyinvestment.com. And when you go to the website, there's a really easy form you fill out. It's right at the top, and they'll get back to you immediately. So why wait? Don't let that divorce, that retirement, or other bad debt situation take control of your life. Take control back and head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com where they can buy your house, protect your credit, and get your life back on track. Again, head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, the most passionate and authentic wrestling analysis on the web. We've got you covered with every Raw, SmackDown, and NXT show, giving you a no bullshit opinion. We know you love wrestling. We do too. So let's get this show underway.
And that's the bottom line. What? 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
Hey guys, welcome to the WWE podcast for this Clash of Review show with returning Michael Gross. I know you guys have been asking, when's he coming back? Where is he? Well, you get answers to both of those tonight as he returns to the show in a 2-hour review of Clash of Champions that we both agreed was one of the best pay-per-views WWE has put on this year. Well, at least in the pandemic era. So from WrestleMania forward. And it was a pay-per-view of a lot of ups, a lot of question marks, and a couple of downs. I mean, we did point out a couple of things that didn't make sense, or that we were frustrated about, or the booking, or whatever. And we did cover those, but this is by no means a show where we just complain about everything. I mean, this is certainly one where we give WWE its due when it's deserving, but it certainly comes with its frustrations. And we also comment towards the end of the show about Retribution's absence. And if you like rants, Michael Gross and I go on one of those about Retribution, as if there haven't been enough of those on this show. But I have a co-host to support me through my issues with Retribution, and he doesn't exactly disagree. So he kind of enabled me. So you could say he's an enabler for Retribution and the rants that go with it. So this is a fun show. Really good to have him back, and we're gonna get that all started. But before I do, of course, tomorrow night, I will be doing a collaborative review of Monday Night Raw and wrapping up Clash of Champions with none other than the Botch Guy, who will be here to team up and cover Raw and, again, kind of just putting a bow on Clash of Champions. So that'll be right here tomorrow on the Raw Review show. And then on Wednesday is a nostalgia that I have been looking forward to for a long time, and that is Muhammad Hassan and his run in WWE, some of the moments, his career, his downfall, really his rise and fall in WWE. So I'm looking forward to that. And if you guys have no idea who I'm talking about, maybe you're new to wrestling, or maybe you haven't been watching more than 5-10 years, then go Google, or YouTube rather, Muhammad Hassan WWE. And this is going to be a fun one again that I've been looking forward to doing. I said I was going to do it, and I just have gotten tied up in other topics or whatnot. Muhammad Hassan comes your way on Wednesday. And that will be a solo show, of which I feel like I haven't done a solo show in quite a while. So that'll be good. And then, again, tomorrow, though, is the Botch Guy. Go subscribe to him on YouTube. Really, again, I say this, but it's so true. A really funny guy and very authentic and high energy, and is just an asset to the wrestling community. So check out the Botch Guy on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel, if I can say that. And then check out the podcast tomorrow night right here, where him and I will be joining forces for the Raw/Clash of Champions review. All right, well, let's get everything going with voicemails, and then we'll jump into our 2-hour review with Michael. And this one comes to us all the way from the Philippines, and Jeff returning to the show with his thoughts and questions. So let's get to Jeff from the Philippines.
Hi Matt, this is Jeff from the Philippines, and I just want to give some of my opinions. First, the heel fighting against heel. We got it with the Hurt Business fighting against Retribution, and matches like AJ Styles versus Sami Zayn. Actually, I enjoy heel versus heel rivalries, and especially like you can actually support one heel over the other when they have a reason to hate them. We got it in 2011 when the Core and the New Nexus have a rivalry, because Wade Barrett, the leader of the Core, has a reason to hate the Nexus because he was kicked out of that group. And on the WWE Championship scene, Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton, I think they want to continue this rivalry to Hell in a Cell, because, you know, there were Big Show, Christian, Ric Flair came back, and even Shawn Michaels beating down Randy Orton, helping Drew McIntyre retain the WWE Championship. And I think Orton's gonna say that that Drew never beat him clean in the ambulance match. So I think they wanna continue this rivalry up to Hell in a Cell, but I don't think that their match at Hell in a Cell is deserving of the structure, because Randy Orton never really did anything that much to Drew McIntyre. He just spun him 3 times in the head, and that's it. Like, interfering in his matches, nothing really very severe. And since the WWE draft is coming, I hope that The Miz and Morrison takes the money in the bank from all this, and when they do, I hope they keep them away from Roman Reigns, because I want The Miz to be a champion again, but Reigns is a new champion. He just regained the Universal Championship, and I hope he will be a dominant champion. And that's all, Matt. Thank you. Have a great day.
Hey, Jeff. So thanks so much again for calling in and giving your thoughts about heel versus heel. You're probably one of the first people to call and tell me that you enjoy heel versus heel sometimes. And, you know, it got me to thinking. I think on paper, typically a heel versus heel is not interesting, because I think it turns fans off by them saying, hey, well, I don't like this guy, and I don't like this guy. Why would I care if they fight, right? I hope they just destroy each other. But we have to remember, as you pointed out, what happens when you put heel versus heel is that it forces fans to pick someone. And as long as there's a respected party in that heel group or that heel matchup, then I think fans will care about choosing the one that they respect. It kind of unearths the respect that they may have for a heel, even though they're booked as a heel, that, hey, I don't like what they're doing right now, but I do respect them. And it kind of forces you to choose the lesser of two evils. Where it wouldn't work is if you put two heels together that have no respect in front of fans or no history in front of the mainstream fans on Raw or SmackDown. then fans will be turned off and go, I don't even care because I don't know who these people are, and they're both booked as heels, don't care. But again, it has to do with respect. So I like your whole analogy about the core and the Nexus and Wade Barrett being kicked out. I had forgotten about that. It's a good example, and I think it's one that we need to kind of take a second look at. I mean, I've dismissed heel versus heel for quite a while because the logic is nobody cares. And maybe in the example of Andrade versus Angel Garza, which is what I've been bringing up for quite some time, maybe we don't care because neither one has really done a ton to, I guess, put themselves in good graces with the WWE fans. If you're going to pick, probably Andrade, given the fact he's been here longer, so sometimes tenure can work in your favor from a fan's perspective of who they're going to cheer for if you're forced with a heel versus heel match. But I will say this, I would not make it a consistent practice if I was in the creative group, a creative team, or in charge of creative direction. I would not make it a common practice. It would be more the exception than the rule. But sometimes booking forces you into a corner of putting babyface versus babyface, which happens more often than heel versus heel. But yeah, very good analogy. Thank you so much, Jeff. And please call back soon. Alrighty. Well, before we get going, if you guys want to hit me up on Twitter, @wrestling_audio. That's @wrestling_audio on Twitter, or on Instagram at WWE_podcast. And if you want ad-free, head on over to Patreon at patreon.com/WWE podcast, and YouTube at youtube.com/the WWE podcast, where I'm putting up videos maybe once, twice a week on rants or certain things that come up that I want to talk about. I haven't done one in a few days, but I've just been overwhelmed with wrestling content and pay-per-view. Anytime you have a pay-per-view weekend, it's just insane. If you do run a podcast, but they'll be coming back soon. I'll be doing one in a day or two. Maybe I'll do one tomorrow. But thank you guys for supporting the show. We're growing and we're climbing the charts, and it's all because of you guys. So if you want to reach out and email us at realwwepodcast@gmail.com, please feel free to do so. You can also call the show, and you may be asking, well, how the heck do I call the show? Easy. Pick up your phone. That's step one. Step two is to call the number 518-952-0247. It's a voicemail only, not manned. Please call if you want to leave your thoughts. Many people have called. New people have called, and that's encouraging. That's great. If you're a new listener or one that's long time and you're like, I don't know, it's kind of weird, trust me, it's not weird. And if it's super weird, I'll pretend I didn't get it and I won't air it. So I won't make anyone look like a fool just to say, aha, I got a really funny voicemail from a listener. I'm not an a-hole, all right? So, all right. Let's get moving on here. Let's get to the meat of what you're here for, and that is Michael Gross and myself discussing the entire Clash of Champions pay-per-view, Gold Rush. I forgot to say Gold Rush. Can't forget that part. That's the most important part. Of course, I'm being extremely sarcastic, but Michael and I did enjoy the show as a whole. So you're going to get to hear that and some rants. So if you love those are also included. Again, guys, tomorrow, another big show with the Botch Guy. Subscribe to him on YouTube and check out our show tomorrow. Until then, guys, I'll talk to you soon. Alrighty, guys, welcome to the WWE podcast, and back with me after it feels like months and months and months and months is Michael Gross, the Gardener Michael Gross. He is back with us to cover Clash of Champions, a very, very noteworthy pay-per-view. I think, in my estimation overall, I think it over-delivered in some areas, and a ton of stuff to talk about, including Roman Reigns pummeling Jey Uso and Randy Orton, taking yet another loss to Drew McIntyre, among a bunch of other stuff. So, Michael, welcome back to the show. It's awesome to have you back. I know the listeners have been asking where you're at. So,
well, I appreciate it. Obviously, a lot of the listeners know that I work at Churchill Downs. We had the Kentucky Derby, even though it was watered down. We still had a lot of private events as far as weddings and things like that went. So I've been very busy, but I've missed the show. I've missed being on with you. I've missed the listeners' reactions. So this means a lot to me to be back on the show. Of course, always I'm humble.
No, trust me. I mean, we have listeners asking me, "Hey, when's Michael coming back? When's he coming back?" I said he's busy. I said he's not gone from the show, so no worries there. He's just, life takes over, and there are priorities. So totally understand, and I'm glad you're back. I'm sure the listeners are glad you're back. But before we get into Clash, and there's it's just a plate full of things to talk about. I know that you have some things that you'd like to discuss, including a little story and a book and a couple of shout-outs. So why don't you take it away?
Sure, if you don't mind. So today I got off work and all I wanted was a big, fat, juicy cheeseburger. So I went to this local place called the Granville Tavern in Louisville on 3rd Street. And I had an amazing mushroom and Swiss and a little salad. And I couldn't finish. So I decided to go home. And it's only about 5 blocks from home, so I was walking. As I'm walking, you know, I kind of have a limp in my right leg because it doesn't work that well. And I kind of kicked the stick, and then I heard the stick kick again. And I turned around, and there was a very attractive woman behind me, scared. And I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "I'm sorry, I was going to warn you I was behind you, but some man started verbally accosting me a block away, so I walked up really fast." So I said, "Well, look, walk with me." And the guy there was nobody behind us, but I wouldn't say was rattled, but she was very cautious. And she's like, "Well, I didn't want to scare you, but unfortunately I did." And actually she did, because when I turned around, I was a little shocked. But long story short, I walked her to her car and we talked for a while. And she's going to listen to the show because she said her and her boyfriend don't have anything to do besides watch TV. They just moved to the city. And she asked me what I was doing tonight, like in a friend way, nothing more. And it wasn't supposed to be more. And it was really nice, like, to have a good conversation. But what I want to say and to share to people is, guys, if a girl doesn't want to be hit on, don't hit on them. And you can actually come off as scaring someone. And it was really weird because she became friends with me, I wouldn't say instantaneously, but she trusted me and she knew I was nice. Just from, you know, the quick walk we had from a couple blocks. But the fact is, people sometimes, we've all seen an attractive woman, we've all said something, but sometimes you can come off and really scare somebody and hurt somebody's feelings. So for the sake of Kristen that I met on 3rd Street, I want to say, guys, let's lay off a little bit.
Wow, that is, I mean, it's a powerful story there because, yeah, there was an attractive woman involved here, and many of our listeners probably are thinking the same thing I was thinking, that it's leading to, hey, you got a date with her or something like that. And in this case, no. I mean, no, it actually is kind of a, like you said, it's a good lesson, because I can't tell you how many times, like, I've been on vacation or just walking down the street, and even down in New York City, like, you hear guys saying things to girls, like, out loud, that I'm like, no, you can think it, but why are you saying this? I mean, like, it's got to have a success rate of like less than 1%. I mean, I never understood the catcalling of women. I mean, like, what woman, if you whistle at a woman or say something to her, especially from across the street, or yell something at her, is going to run into your arms? I mean, it's just not going to happen. I mean, it's not.
It's tactless, it's classless. So to break the ice, make her feel better, I told her it happened to me too, except it was by a man. So, you know, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But,
mm-hmm. It does.
You know, I got catcalled, and I was like, you know, I said I laughed, but, you know, when she approached me, she already had her keys in her hand, like, clenched. And she wasn't frightened, but she was very cautious. And she's a strong female, but very, very nice. And like I said, a very attractive woman. But it wasn't a moment for me. It was a moment to make me feel good, I guess, inside, that she trusted me and that I could walk her to her car, and then actually hung out and listened to me and talked to me about the podcast that we're doing tonight. That was
awesome.
cool.
That's really cool. That's actually really cool. Like, I mean, that is, I think, an even better ending than, hey, I got a date or something like that. No, that's really cool. I mean, how often does that happen? How often does something like that happen where you get a chance to not only make a friend, but also talk about the show and make somebody feel safe? And that's great. I mean, that's really good. I like that.
It was definitely positive.
So shout out to Kristen, right? Like, shout out to Kristen. So hopefully you're listening. Hopefully you enjoy the show. And anytime you, I guess, need a chaperone to make you feel safe to walk across the street, we got one right here. So that's awesome.
You've seen pictures of me. You know I'm not exactly a force to be reckoned with, okay? I'm a small guy. We all know this.
Yeah, but you know what? There are things you can carry to even the odds. I mean, like, let's be honest.
That's true.
You know, so Well, that's great.
True.
That's really cool. I know you also wanted to talk about a book that you have.
Absolutely. So I'm halfway through this. It's called Death of the Territories by Tim Hornbaker. And if anybody grew up in my era, which was around the time that the territories were drying up and Vince was taking over, it's an amazing book. Now, you could parallel it with a book like Sex, Lies, and Headlocks, which was really good, and it basically tells you that Vince was the man who masterminded pay-per-view. However, this actually talks about more of how people screwed up, how people basically gave him everything, and he could have been shut down a couple times and he got lucky. He just got really, really lucky. Vince McMahon must have a horseshoe that he wears around his neck to bed, because there were times that he was really screwed and they just put the wrong person in charge of a rival company or something like that, or wouldn't sell out. At one point, he was going to be assassinated, and that's also covered in Sex, Lies, and Headlocks, but it's a really good book, and Tim Hornbaker did a great job, and if you have a chance, pick it up. Death of the Territories. I think I paid maybe $20 on Amazon for it, but it's a great read. It's hard to put down. Unfortunately, if I didn't have a million weddings and events to do at Churchill, I honestly would have been through it a long time ago.
That is awesome. That is something. That's a book I have not read. I didn't even know it existed. That is something I will definitely pick up and recommend that everyone else does too, because there is so much involved that we don't know about the insides of the pay-per-view world, and I didn't even know he was actually supposed to be assassinated. I had no idea. That's crazy.
His life was saved by, I believe, Jim Ross.
Whoa. And yet he ended up firing Jim. So
yeah, I believe it's the same Jim Ross, but basically he was in a stall in a bathroom, overhearing people talking about assassinating him while he was doing his business. So he lifted his legs up so no one would know he was there. Wow. Yeah.
All right, that's the hook right there. No, that's a great hook. All right, so everybody check that out. Death of the Territories. Amazon, you said, I'm sure?
Yes, easily.
All right. Awesome. And last not least, though, because I don't want to forget, any shout-outs you got before we get going here?
I want to say happy birthday to two people. One of my closest friends, Jamie West, he just had his birthday on Saturday. And another friend, his name is Mark Tedford. He lives in Memphis, and he is a huge wrestling fan. He's a little bit older than me. He's been into it forever. He was a big USWA fan, Continental fan. He always called it his hillbilly soap opera, and he's a great guy. And I want to shout out to him, because when I first got into management in Memphis, he was like a mentor, and he took me by his side, and he really showed me the right way to do things. And last place I want to shout out is Man's Best Friend Dog Training in Cleveland, or outside Cleveland in Madison, Ohio. Because if you need a dog trained, or they will train a dog and bring it to you, no matter where you are in the United States or overseas.
Wow. I'm learning so much tonight. I feel like you're an encyclopedia of things for me tonight. I mean, that's awesome. I did not know that places like that existed, where they'll train and then bring them to you.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Clash of Champions, my friend. What overall? Again, we'll get into the individual things in just a moment. But how did you feel about the pay-per-view as a whole?
You're not going to believe this, but I gave it a B+.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. Yep.
I thought that this. First of all, there was no cinematics. Mm-hmm. That made me feel good. It's like I scrubbed my body a second time in the shower. Like, there was nothing bad. There was no dirt left behind. Mm-hmm. So no cinematics was awesome. The gripes I have are so minimal. First of all, the wrestling was wrestling. It wasn't garbage. It wasn't. I mean, I will get to a few things as we go match by match, but. The wrestling was fantastic. It was actually really wrestling. And honestly, I wish the Cruiserweight belt was on the main show, the tag, like Shinsuke and Cesaro. I wish why they're facing Lucha House Party is beyond me. They're way too talented to be wasting time in a ring with some luchadors who never get wins. So aside from that, I've got a lot of good things to say about the show, and the minor detractors we'll talk about.
No, I'm with you as a whole too. Looking at this from a high level, I thought this pay-per-view over-delivered in a big way for me, because you go in, you look at this, and you're like, some of these matches are just so predictable. But this goes to show you that good storytelling and great matches can often offset predictability that so many wrestling fans use as a complaint about wrestling in today's environment. It's too predictable. But again, predictability is a non-factor when a story is really good. Look no further to me, and again, my opinion, than Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, who, we all knew the outcome. We all knew what was going to happen, that Jey Uso had zero chance of winning, but yet it is one of the most talked about segments of the entire pay-per-view. So I guess, I'll start right there. I'll start right there, because that's probably the biggest thing people are talking about, is the Tribal Chief and his brutal, uncomfortable, uneasy beatdown of Jey Uso. So I'm going to toss this one to you about the main event here. Did you like it?
Loved it. And I really thought I was going to hate it going into it. First of all, you got a tag team guy going against his cousin. Of course, we know they're cousins and blah, 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 blah. First of all, the match was good. It was solid. Roman Reigns is really building as a heel, and that's what people wanted to begin with. And that's how he debuted on the main roster, and that's what we bought into. And I'm buying into this more and more and more. So he destroys his own cousin. He'll probably destroy the other cousin in another title defense. But to quote one of the best managers of all time, Frankenstein needs to kill a few villagers before you believe he's a monster. Now, if Roman Reigns just barrel rolled over, say, I don't know, like anybody who's bigger on even Otis, who has the money in the bank, like people would defecate on it. Whereas I feel we are really building this evil version of him. And I love Paul Heyman's reactions and his looks to this guy beating his own cousin senseless. That fear, like he gives a fear look, which I think is so the cherry on top of the milkshake. It's beautiful. The match itself stood on its own. The throwing into the towel, I loved it, because that finish hasn't been done in a while. And it shows that, they're going to continue the storyline. It kept growing. It evolved, and it has legs. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, this was no doubt a simple building block for Roman Reigns as an evil heel. This was exactly what I thought it was going to be, and it is exactly what it turned out to be, and better with the execution, because I didn't expect to feel this uncomfortable when watching it. And that's a good thing. I don't mean uncomfortable in a way that makes me want to turn away. I mean uncomfortable in a way that makes me go, oh my God, what kind of man would do this? And yes, Paul Heyman's reaction was brilliant. Again, it's a subset of what happened here, but it is an important piece of Paul Heyman, who is shocked himself. I like the fact also that Roman he lost the vest. He lost that tactical vest that he's been wearing for the last 6 years. So he has a new look. He has new teeth. And I think not far behind is probably new music. I know he's hinted at that as well. So we are seeing a slow descent of Roman Reigns from this beloved stand-up guy to this just evil, do anything that I need to keep this, respect who I am, I'm the head of the table, I'm the tribal chief kind of guy, and making Jey Uso say that you are the tribal chief, you're my tribal chief, was also just a sadistic thing to do, and beating him senseless was even as watching, you and I have been watching wrestling forever, that was uncomfortable, but in the best way.
I loved it. Honestly, like this whole show, and like I said, we'll divulge more as we go on, but this whole show was a throwback, not necessarily to. It felt like old NWA, not the Attitude Era, but the old NWA, and parts of the Attitude Era. It was a great show. Yes, the only thing I didn't like was him wearing the lei at the end. That was just goofy. Like the only thing worse would have been a headdress. I mean, let's be honest. But I see more storyline. It looks like a storyline. It's not, well, next week I'll face Dolph Ziggler. It's going to be something better. And I really feel this. I think this is going to be awesome. I honestly could not have turned my head because I was in awe of the great way Roman Reigns was selling his heel.
I think WWE is probably looking at themselves and going, oh my God, this is what we missed for the last 6 years? And we're all saying, yup, this is what you missed the last 6 years, because boy, doesn't he feel more natural in this role. He feels like this is not him playing an act. It doesn't feel like he's trying to play the corporate good guy. He feels like he's being himself, this arrogant SOB that does as little work as possible, wants people to respect him, that he is the alpha male. That's who Roman Reigns feels like as a person, and whether he is or not, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever truly know, but it certainly comes across on camera like that is who he truly is. It just is. It's brilliant, and I don't expect this to get any worse. I really am looking forward to this storyline. This is something that I think we'll look back on, and now the announcers can look back on and say, hey, if Jey Uso did this to his own flesh and blood, imagine what he's going to do to somebody that is not his family. And that's exactly the narrative that was driven home, and it makes me excited for not just his Jimmy Uso, which, like you said, is probably somewhere on the chopping block of getting pummeled himself down the line, but maybe The Rock. Many people have been saying, hey, what about The Rock? And yeah, it could lead to a WrestleMania match down the line, but I'm really pumped for this. I hope they just absolutely get every drop of juice out of the Roman Reigns heel turn as possible. I'm talking like maybe even multiple years of this, 1 to 2 years. I mean, it's possible.
That would be the perfect thing, honestly. And you know what's going to get him the ultimate heel moment is when they have like Rikishi's birthday and he comes out and dances and Roman beats him senseless and just blades him or something, just guts him like a pig. That's going to be it. It's going to be a Rikishi moment, and then it'll be The Rock. Like, I did it for Rikishi.
Oh, yeah, I did it for The Rock. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, it's very true. And maybe no. I'm thinking back to 2000 when Rikishi was revealed as the one who hit Stone Cold.
Yeah.
Yes. But maybe Roman ends up going to Raw with the draft in a few weeks. I mean, you don't know where Roman could go with the Universal Championship. Maybe Drew and Roman swap, and I don't know. So maybe Roman stays on SmackDown. I think he's got a nice home on SmackDown. Like I look at SmackDown and I think he is like one of the big players. He's part of the brand of SmackDown now. I don't want him coming to Raw, but again, this is the draft is in a few weeks, and hopefully with the draft, we don't get the awful mock-up war rooms of Fox and USA, of which they have zero idea who or why they're picking who they are. And, I mean, last year was just – it was a embarrassment. So hopefully they don't do that. They find some other format. But any final thoughts on the Roman Jey Uso match?
No, honestly, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the match, but I love the fact that they're driving it home that Reigns is a heel, and Paul Heyman adds to it. And I think, honestly, there was no other way to do this without Paul, because the lost art of a manager is out there. Now, the worst case scenario in this situation, and I hate to say it, and you probably are thinking it, is that we get a face Brock Lesnar. I don't want that. I don't know what's going on with this contract right now. I've heard he didn't sign. I've heard he's re-signed. I've heard contradicting things over and over again, according to WrestleZone, Wrestling Inc., all the sites that we go to, and all the stuff that we look for news. And basically, I don't know what's going on with him. I know you love Brock. Brock is a beast. Brock is a destroyer. But without a foil and making Roman Reigns that foil, I don't know if it'll work. Because it just – I'd rather see Brock take on somebody else. I'd rather see Brock do something in more the twilight of his career. I think there's better things for him to do. And there might be people like Keith Lee that he can put over and elevate. So it doesn't do anything for Roman Reigns, who's already beaten him. So to build that, which I unfortunately kind of see down the road, and let's be honest, we know it's going to happen one more time. It'll be good, but it's not going to be as good as like tonight. It won't be. Tonight was a great heel moment, and no matter you can't go against a face Brock Lesnar and have a great heel moment. You can't. They tried that before. They tried it with the Big Show. They tried it with the face turn of he and the Undertaker and the respect and stuff like that. It just does not work. So you can't have somebody who is finally coming into their own as a heel facing someone who is a permanent heel and a legitimate destroyer and trying to pretend like they're nice, because you're always waiting for one to turn on the other. And then you have Paul Heyman. It just makes it not as predictable, but more it cheapens the match. That's the best way I could put it.
I have been, yes, I'm a big Brock Lesnar fan in all sense of, in all formats, face or heel. But what I will say is, does anyone really want to see Roman versus Brock again? I mean, I think we have beaten that horse to death, resurrected it, and then killed it again. I mean, it has been a very, very trying program with those two. I mean, it came to the point where it's like, no, I don't want to see them anymore. I mean, they're good together, but it's over. What I would like to see more, and what I actually predicted would happen before I knew that Brock was a free agent, was that Brock would join Roman Reigns and they would go on an absolute tear of WWE like Austin and Triple H did on the two-man power trip. I was a big advocate of that, of Roman and Brock teaming up with Paul Heyman as the mouthpiece for both. I mean, I would love them to team up and just run roughshod over the entire roster. That would be something I'd love to see.
That would make sense. That would be great. You just have to look at who would stop them. And the perfect people to stop them would have been one of my personal favorites, Seth Rollins, and his tag team partner who, he's kind of like the champion of AEW right now. But that would have been the perfect antidote after like a year of just terrorizing and destroying everything. The only other person that you could see that could take down those two would be a returning, please God, someday, CM Punk.
CM Punk, or yeah, I mean, I would love to see that as well. But assuming that that's not going to happen, I would say Drew McIntyre and maybe Keith Lee teaming up. I mean, or Braun Strowman somehow getting hot enough to believe that he could help. I mean, or the Fiend. I mean, like those are really your top candidates. But I mean, we're like 3 steps ahead of something. But
yeah, I know.
Here we go. I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy. But that's what wrestling does. That's what wrestling does. I mean, but it's a fun thing to book because seeing those two together, people would lose their minds. You get that moment, Brock returns, they have a stare down, you think they're going to go at it, as they have so many times, and they end up joining forces. I mean, it would be awesome. I would love it.
It would be amazing. It's great booking. But this is why we do podcasts, and we're not hired by them. So, it sucks, but it's true.
And creatives probably listening to this, like, oh, you can't do that, this and that, and yeah, well, whatever. But all right, moving on here. Let's go down to really let's go to the kind of the bottom of the show, which was the kickoff. And you mentioned this a little bit before, of Lucha House Party versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. And I mean, there's really not a whole lot to say about this. I actually, though, predicted Lucha House Party win simply for the fact that I don't think WWE looks at Shinsuke and Cesaro as long-term tag team champions. They don't really give them a whole lot of mic time besides the pre-taped promos as they're entering the ring. And Lucha House Party have gotten a few big wins over the last month or so and have somewhat of a story heading into the pay-per-view. And I'm like, oh, maybe they'll do it to give a team, another team, some life. And they didn't do it, and they kept it on Nakamura and Cesaro, which I'm fine with because I love both guys, particularly Cesaro. And I mean, I don't really know what to say about this. It's kind of a just by the numbers victory, and you have these two win and retain. Do you have much more to say about this match?
It was filler, and I hate that. I hate that Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro would ever be put into the filler category. Lucha House Party, I mean, sure, they gained a little bit of a footholding, but what's the tag team scene? They're splitting up tag teams left and right. And those two are so good as singles wrestlers. And everybody in their right mind has said both of them should have been world champions I don't know how many times over. And they have to work against a team that, I mean, is going to be off TV for probably the next 10 weeks. It cheapens their titles to be on the pre-show on Night of Champions, first of all. And I also think that the Cruiserweight title should have been defended because it's Night of Champions, every title. You don't have to have every match be 20 minutes. We can make some time for these people. But with that being said, I'm glad that Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura won everything. I just wish that they were taken more seriously. One, as singles competitors, but two, just as champions. I would like to see them go longer with their titles and maybe talk about the fact that, when Shinsuke was in New Japan, he knocked out Brock Lesnar's tooth. That adds a lot of credibility to the King of Strong Style, who you made the King of WWE Style, which is nothing. And Cesaro, I don't know if there's a human being stronger than him. So there's so many things that you could accentuate with both of them. But if you're going to keep them a team, which at this point, for the sake of their careers, it's that or they have to work programs with Sheamus or The Miz. I want them to be dominant, and I want them to face better competition than the Lucha House Party.
Stay right there. The WWE podcast will return after this quick break.
Are you in a position where you need to sell your home? Perhaps you're facing financial difficulties, or you're facing a foreclosure, a divorce, or maybe you're just relocating because of retirement. Maybe there are some other debt issues and you just need to sell your home. Well, here is a great solution for you. And that solution is Bright Realty Investment. They are a leading real estate solutions company, and their mission is to work hand in hand with all parties to handle every situation with the utmost professionalism and care. So if you're in a particularly stressful financial situation right now and you need to protect your credit, then don't waste another minute. Head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com. That's brightrealtyinvestment.com. And when you go to the website, there's a really easy form you fill out. It's right at the top, and they'll get back to you immediately. So why wait? Don't let that divorce, that retirement, or other bad debt situation take control of your life. Take control back and head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com, where they can buy your house, protect your credit, and get your life back on track. Again, head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com.
Welcome back to the WWE podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
Right. I mean, Lucha House Party is the Mexicools of 2020. I mean, that's just kind of what they are, at least in Vince McMahon's eyes. And they never have really been taken seriously. They've always been kind of this bathroom break group because we don't know anything about them other than they like to say lucha. I mean, that's it. And I'm with you on Cesaro and Shinsuke. With Cesaro, and I mentioned this on my preview show on Saturday, was that I think he has a Daniel Bryan story looming in his body, in his career, because the fans have respected him for so long and know that he has been misused and misbooked for so long. And with Vince McMahon saying the reason that he's, very famously saying the reason he's not maybe where he should be is because he's Swiss. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you put all these things together, and he could have a Kofi Kingston-like run or a Daniel Bryan-like run where it's kind of this organic uprising for Cesaro if he's ever given an opportunity in a chamber, or given an opportunity where maybe he wouldn't have otherwise gotten it. Like, I would see this being definitely a possible Daniel Bryan or Kofi Kingston carpet ride at some point. But right now they're SmackDown Tag Team Champions. It doesn't feel exciting that they are, but we know that they're both really good inside the ring. And it also shows you the really where WWE views the SmackDown Tag Team Championship itself to be put on the kickoff show. Now, originally, the kickoff show, as I did my preview show on Saturday, was actually the Raw Women's Championship. It was Zelina Vega versus Asuka in the pre-show until they changed it last second. So, again, any championship put in the pre-show is certainly disrespectful to the championship itself because it's not on the pay-per-view proper. Like, that is I don't know how you have a championship match in the preview show. Can't you just have like just a non-title match between, I don't know, like Riddick Moss and somebody, or you could have even done Apollo Crews. I mean, yeah, I mean, like there's things that you could have put on the pre-show beyond a championship match, but it just goes to show you the pecking order of what WWE and how they value each championship. It's telling. It's very telling.
It's disgusting to me, but I'm really happy that you mentioned the whole Cesaro. I listened to that segment that you talked about him having an underdog kind of story. It's hard to see him as an underdog because he's so big and he's so incredibly strong. But there's got to be a way, I think, that they could tell a story. If Vince McMahon loves to put himself in so many storylines and he thinks that he's the headline of everything, that's the perfect way. It's not Stone Cold, it's a man proving himself. And I would do it like over a year where Vince McMahon, like he goes to whatever, Adam Pearce, I guess, is the authority figure, which I hope they're not going to make it like an evil authority figure. But he goes to Adam Pearce and says, hey, we went, we grew up together. We battled everything. Why can't I get a title shot? And then he tells him to ask Vince, and Vince sends him to NXT UK. And he dominates NXT UK. And in fact, he beats Walter, but he demands it's a non-title match just to prove he's better. And then he gets bounced to NXT, and he defeats Finn Balor or whoever else, but he also demands it's a non-title match. And then he gets bounced to SmackDown and demands another non-title match with whoever the champion is and wins it. And then that sets up, I hate the Royal Rumble stipulation, but he's got to do that, and he can't be number one. He's got to be middle of the pack, wins it, and takes on whoever is the Raw champion. That's a perfect way over a year to build it. They keep treating him the way he's been talked about. We don't want you here anymore.
I think your plan is good if we are able to bring fans, real fans, like human beings that are true fans, not NXT trainees, back into an arena. I think that will give it soul. I don't see that happening without fans actually in attendance to support it. And I'm not talking about tweeting or putting a post on Instagram or whatever. Like, you need a real in-person live reaction to Cesaro to have Vince hear the support for him kind of growing and growing. So I'm with you. I just think they're going to need real fans to do it.
Yeah, it's so weird because I'm afraid that they're going to keep going with this whole Thunderdome thing longer than they should. It might outlast its welcome, but then again, like I said, we didn't see a cinematic match tonight, so that made this pay-per-view a lot better. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like that, and I was wondering to myself when the pay-per-view ended, I'm like, beyond the matches being really good and the stories being good, what made this so good? And I couldn't put my finger on it until you said no cinematic. So it was just so, it really was a breath of fresh air. I'm like, oh my God. This was what pay-per-views should be. This to me might be the best pay-per-view WWE's put on since the pandemic happened. And I'm even talking WrestleMania itself just to some degree. There were some things better than even WrestleMania, certainly better than Money in the Bank, Payback, I mean, you name it. So This was really good. And all right, well, moving on the line here to, let's see what match I want to go to next. I guess I'll go in a little bit of an order. Boy, I love this. AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, and Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. I'll let you take it first.
Holy biscuits, that was the match of the night. First of all, people can say that Jeff and AJ have lost a step, and everybody knows I'm not the hugest Hardy fan, but I'll get into that in a second. This match was amazing. It was beautiful. Aside from Jeff's slow slither down the odd side of the ladder, which Sammy made work, there wasn't the slow ladder climb, and we both hate that. It's something that just needs to be left behind. AJ wearing his New Japan tights, I loved it. They're not really New Japan tights, but it was definitely like a shout out to his Japanese fans. I just love that little moment. And Sami Zayn is looking a lot like Colonel De Beers from the old AWA. For all you older fans out there, you'll know what I mean, but he was definitely looking like Colonel De Beers. it looked like Sammy actually broke his hand when I couldn't believe the way AJ launched that ladder into the ring. That blew my mind. And Sammy's selling of that, first of all, it was the opposite hand of the one that it really hit. At least it looked like that way to me. And when I rewatched it, it still looked that way. But like I said, and I might be wrong. But let's see. I'm checking my notes here. For the first time in a long time, AJ broke out the somersault DDT or the moonsault DDT. Amazing. The handcuffing to the ear. Different. First of all, the handcuffing, it was just different. It was a different ladder match. This was not the same ladder match. But the way he handcuffed his ear, he would look like my friend Josh Bear. That's a shout out, by the way. It was, to me, just amazing. There was nothing that I could say bad about this match. I thought AJ was going to take it easy. I thought Jeff was going to take it easy being older. I thought there was going to be a lot of slow climbing. There wasn't. This was solid wrestling. The spots were different. It wasn't the same old ladder spots. It wasn't the 15-foot ladder in the middle of the ring and we have to jump off to the outside. Instead, we're pushing ladders down onto people like when Sammy was cowering in the corner. It was good. There was more pushing the ladder over, which makes sense in a real fighting aspect or a real competition aspect as opposed to the slow climb. So that's how I felt about that.
Yeah, the slow climb is something I always look for, and it's just always, you just kind of sigh. It's like having a cage match with the stipulation of being able to escape as a way of victory. Like, how is that a thing? You just open the door and walk out. That's how you win. I mean, like, so it's one of those deals, and we did got a little bit of that, but it was minimized and it was rectified with just some great storytelling. Some of the spots, my God, like the Swanton Bomb on Sami Zayn. The sound that made, like, it literally sounded like a car crash. It was one of the most violent sounds I've heard of that Swanton Bomb, and he executed it perfectly. There were some times I really thought that, like you said, with the ladder being thrown into the ring that AJ Styles did to Sami Zayn, that he literally broke his hand. When you slow it down, he just missed. It was a great spot there. The handcuffs by Sami Zayn handcuffs are nothing really new with handcuffs, but you kind of forget about handcuffs because they're not used very often, and you're like, oh, and handcuffs always make it interesting because they're not used a ton. And Sami Zayn, the way he did it with the ear that was also uncomfortable and like you could feel what that felt like for Jeff.
Yes.
And having him hold the ladder next to his ear and he has to slowly get in the ring, knowing that literally you can't fake. If he drops that, it tears his ear. I mean, there's just no way around it. And having the way that he used the handcuffs on AJ, tying AJ to himself, and then taking AJ and tying clamping the handcuff around the support of the ladder to climb up, hiding the key in his mouth so that he could take his own handcuff off. It was all brilliant. I was really hoping Sami Zayn would be victorious. To me, Sami Zayn is more entertaining than both guys as Intercontinental Champion. That's not taking anything away from AJ Styles, who has been an absolute, complete overachieving star that WWE signed, that I don't think anyone thought he would become this big. No doubt. Nothing away from him, but nothing away from Jeff Hardy. Although Jeff Hardy is not exactly the most exciting promo and is just kind of like your legacy star that still has it. I was hoping Sami Zayn would become champion. I'm glad that they did. I'm glad they went that way. I love Sami Zayn's promo after saying, I didn't recapture anything. Right? Like, he truly believed that he was not recapturing. He retained his Intercontinental Championship. That was great. Just everything about this. I'm such a huge Sami Zayn fan from his personality and in-ring perspective. I just hope that they don't go with the dual belts and they just go back to a single Intercontinental Championship belt. I hope that's not a thing going forward. But outside of that, man, I would give this match an A+. I mean, it was awesome. I loved everything about it.
Match of the night. There's one thing I wanted to say, though. When AJ was diving and missed, I think it was Jeff Hardy, and landed on the guardrail, that wet thud he made, I felt that.
Ooh, yes.
And yeah, I mean, I heard like I had to rewatch it. Like it's one of those like I don't know, weird moments. You're like, did he really get hurt, or was that, you know? And I rewatched it, and I was like, wow, like that. I'm a small guy, you know. That would have winded me, maybe knocked me out, and I couldn't believe that he could keep going after that, even though he took like a little, you know, a little powder break, so to speak. But man, this was the match of the night. It was an A+. I absolutely agree. Like I said, I am very surprised with this whole pay-per-view. So,
and I think this could be, and again, this is maybe just because it's fresh in our minds, but and maybe it'll stand the test of time. However, to me right now, as I sit here rather, on September 28th, 2020, I would say this match should be at least nominated or in the discussion for match of the year. I mean, just it's in the discussion. I'm not saying it's definitely the best match of the year. I'm not saying that for sure, but I think it should be in the nominated section, right? That's just my thoughts on this. That's how much I love this. I was so surprised by it, and it wasn't just senseless violence either. Like a lot of times you just see spots for the sake of spots in ladder matches to see how many cool things can we do with a ladder, how many different ways can we do it. They did things that were purposeful. They did things that made sense as the match went on. And you could even hear in Michael Cole's voice when he's being serious and he's literally and actually surprised at how good this match was. You could hear it when he said that was one of the damnedest matches I've ever seen in calling wrestling for 24 years. That was one of the most just craziest matches I've ever seen. I believed him because I think he believed it too. It really came off excellent. I think that these three are probably not done with one another, given especially that we have Hell in a Cell coming up next on the pay-per-view schedule in late October. So I don't think these three are done. Maybe they go to the Cell, but either way, I think this was easily the match of the night, no questions asked.
absolutely agreed. Like I said, I mean, you already know my opinion. My whole thing is like going forward. I wish I could see these three work more. I'd even add a fourth, but I would add a fourth that's equally as talented. And the person I would like to add is probably Humberto Carrillo. As silly as it sounds, he is like a young version of Jeff, and he could use the rub. And I think working with the vets will get him over a little bit more. Although I know he's on Raw, he would be the perfect person, I think, in my opinion, to add to this. If you're going to do a shake-up with the so-called superstars, it's the same company. Let's be honest here, okay? Everybody gets a paycheck from WWE. He would be the guy. I'd put him over there. I would have him really light it up. He might not have to win anything, but I really think that it would reinvigorate his career. And I think that, honestly, I can't think of how worse the match quality could be. There's no way it could be any worse. It would be so entertainingly great. It's unreal.
I don't disagree. I mean, what is Humberto Carrillo doing right now? Just getting beat up on a weekly basis by Retribution? I mean, that's essentially what he's doing.
That's the sad part, yeah. We'd have to build a story. It would take at least 4 months to get him to that position. But he has the talent with those guys. It could be great. And it would be the rub he needed. Like I said, probably 6 months is better than 4 months, really. But I'd like to see that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if WWE is on that same wavelength. Probably not. But yeah, I think he needs some platform to make a name for himself. He has yet to really do that. He's been kind of in and out of things that are relevant, and he challenged, what was it, AJ Styles for the United States Championship, I think, at one point, and he just hasn't had that big moment yet, and this will give him a platform to do it. And yeah, he doesn't win. I mean, the winning is not the issue. It's just giving him a foundation to build on. Okay, well, yes. Moving on to, and I'm kind of scared to ask, because this might be one of the lowlights of the pay-per-view, is the 24/7 championship that was kind of, I mean, it was run through a few segments in the show, and R-Truth came across the referee's lounge, or whatever the hell you call it. I didn't know that was a thing. And he's dressed, I don't know, I don't know what he was supposed to be dressed like, an old lumberjack. I don't know. And Drew Gulak saw him and did the most devastating finisher in WWE with the roll-up from behind, which is about 95% of how this championship changes hands. That's the first segment of this. And didn't Truth win it back, though? I think Truth won it back during an interview that Drew Gulak was doing, too.
Matt, I respect you as a man and the host of this podcast. The 24/7 championship does not exist. From this point forward, we can neither confirm nor deny that anything ever happened.
I'm over it.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's just honestly may not even be worth discussing, but I wanted to talk about it because it's on the list here. It is, to me, it has been dead for a while. I don't miss it. I don't look for these segments anymore. It's like this to me was like chewing what is it, that fruity gum, that zebra-striped gum? What do you call it?
God, yeah, zebra-striped. Oh, that was disgusting.
It's a zebra-striped gum. I can't think of it. Maybe, I don't know what it's called. But
No, you're right. It was zebra-striped gum.
Or juicy fruit, or one of the gums that, like, lasted about 10 seconds. You're like, oh, this is awesome. Aw. Like, it's one of those. And that's what this championship is. I don't miss it. I mean, this is not entertaining anymore. I know it's giving R-Truth camera time. I'm a big R-Truth fan in some respects, but, man, this thing is done and over. Like, I'm over the 24/7 title. They've done everything they can do. And just, yeah, I'm with you. Like, can we just write an obituary for it? Yes. Okay.
The only other thing I will say about that real quick is that just further defecated upon Cesaro and Nakamura.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right. This thing is, moving on.
Yeah.
Zelina Vega and Asuka, Raw Women's Championship. I'll take this one first. Number one, everyone knows I'm a huge Zelina Vega fan. From a just personality, from a presence, from promo delivery, and in ring, she's better than most people probably knew that she could be, because most people have seen her only in a managerial role. And in the ring, she's good. I wouldn't say she's great. She's certainly got some improvement, but that's fine. I didn't expect her to win this match. I did not expect her to win the Raw Women's Championship. As much as I love her character and her personality and all that she stands for, I don't want her becoming champion yet, because I don't think that the fans are ready for it, nor do I think that Zelina Vega as a character is ready for it yet either. So, but the match itself was good. It didn't blow me away. There were a few missed spots here and there, but overall the finish I loved. The kick to the head and then the reversal into the reversal had me believing a couple of times. So I really can't complain about this match. Beyond a couple of, like, when Asuka does her, I guess, rear view version of what, what do you call it, Naomi does, but she gets somehow stuck in the ropes. Yeah. How does she, and she just lingers there? She's done that many times. Like, how does she just linger there? You can't be stuck.
I don't get that, but I'm cutting you off. Go ahead. Finish your thoughts, please.
Well, no, I'll just close in by saying I am glad Zelina didn't win, and that's weird to say given that I'm such a Zelina fan, but I know that giving her the championship too early is not good for her character, and I don't think WWE is ready for Asuka to lose the championship either, especially given that she did double duty. I mean, how many times are we going to see, and we'll talk about that soon too, how many times are we going to see Asuka do double duty? I mean, she comes into SmackDown inexplicably and challenges for the SmackDown championship. Do they not trust anybody else? Can nobody else, like, fill the spot here? But again, we'll get to that. This was a good match. And I'm okay with the outcome, given I'm willing to wait for Zelina Vega. I'm okay with delayed gratification here.
All right, I know that JR used to say this on his podcast. Sometimes somebody does their best work when they're a polar opposite. Zelina Vega, when she becomes a babyface, is going to do her best work. You can mark my words on that, because she has the tools. I watched her as Tia Trinidad. I watched her in the Mae Young. The girl has the skills. She's, no bigger than my thumb, and that's no offense to her. She's just a very small, petite girl. And I think that's why she was stuck so long in that managerial position. Plus, she has a poison tongue. She can talk like no one's business. She is a great manager, especially with Andrade. Anybody who doesn't speak English, with that whole faction that she had with Andrade, Angel, and I honestly think that when you cut her loose as a babyface and we turn the tables, I think that we're really going to see something different. Also, with that being said, I think being a manager for so long, she got ring rust. Because when I look back at some of her older matches, as Tia Trinidad or like even the Mae Young, she was much more crisp, much more finessed. I think she could be in that upper echelon of the four horsewomen. I just don't think that it's right now because, okay, well, you got 3 weeks to, train again. Well, that doesn't help. And also being much smaller than a lot of the women doesn't help. I mean, the only girl that's that size, it really is Alexa Bliss, and she's been very active. So I think it's a lot of ring rust, but honestly, I thought it was a good match. I really did think it was a good match. Yeah, a little botchy here and there. I just think they had to feel each other out. I honestly think that if you give Zelina maybe 2 months of being active in the ring, dark matches, whatever, she's going to be destroying it. And she could be like the female version of Rey Mysterio out there. I really think that she could get that following. She is amazing. I think she's really talented, especially what I saw as her being Tia Trinidad. I really think there's a lot out there that we're not seeing yet.
That's exactly what I think this was, and we don't know how much of a heads up they told or how they gave Zelina to say, hey, we're actually thinking of pulling you from the managerial role. We're thinking about putting you in the main event or the one of the main events for the women on at the pay-per-view. We don't know. Like you said, it could have been just a few weeks, and I'm sure she's keeping herself in shape, but there's a difference, as you'll always hear from wrestlers, there's a difference between gym shape and ring shape and getting your timing back and everything else, and there's nothing like a live wrestling match to actually do that. There's no substitution for that, and I think this is exactly what we saw. And I hope that this continues. I hope this isn't a one-off for Zelina Vega. I know she's getting another championship match tonight on Raw, which is going on as we speak. And how she earned that championship match, as much as of a fan I am as her, this is just logic of WWE creative. Like, how does this happen given that she just began her singles career in WWE, earns an opportunity just because she slapped Asuka to get here, and now she earns another opportunity inexplicably. I mean, again, this isn't Zelina's fault. It's not Asuka's fault. It's creative to not care about those details that I have been complaining about forever. And then this isn't a new thing. But that said, I also love, and we haven't talked about this with the match, is after the match, Zelina did not cave into the handshake with Asuka. She pretended to bow and then attacked her again in just true to her character. I loved that she didn't cave to the, good sportsmanship. Yes, her best days are probably as a babyface. I think fans are going to get really behind her when the time is right. But right now, she needs to kind of feel herself out as a heel. As a heel, you can be more flexible. You don't have to worry about people liking you. And Zelina Vega, I love that she was true to herself and just attacked Asuka again. And maybe that's exactly what earned her the championship, because as we all know, that's the best way to earn a championship match in WWE. Or hell, earn contracts, destroy WWE's crap, and you get contracts. I mean, so if anybody knows the secret, yeah. So
don't get me started on that.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, you want to talk about Apollo and Bobby Lashley?
I do. What did you think?
Well, first of all, this is the one time that I think Apollo looked good in defeat. Aside from that, they got to stop killing him. He is a potential future star. Yeah, he can't talk. Then give him a manager. I know that's the dreaded thing. We don't have managers anymore. That's why you have to go to promo class. Please. The manager was a third dimension. Whether it be face or heel, Captain Lou or Jimmy Hart. They were different people. It also adds depth and texture to a character. But, okay, so he doesn't cut a great promo, but he is amazing in the ring. He looked really good tonight. And we know Lashley's a destroyer. Bobby Lashley is a beast. We know this. But the abuse of Apollo needs to stop. Period. Apollo Crews, Uhaa Nation, as I knew him on the Indies, is one of the most talented wrestlers I've ever seen in my life. He can do what Seth Rollins can do. He just can't cut that promo, and he might not be in the management's favor. But this guy needs a break Better than having the U.S. Championship and then getting destroyed once and then having a strong defeat, but still. I feel like they're trying to bury him and they're trying to bury Ricochet. Why would you bury two of the most talented people and can carry you and two people who could potentially headline AEW in a couple of years when their contracts are up?
I don't know. Like you said, the whole excuse of, well, they can't cut a promo. Well, guess what? Neither can Roman Reigns, neither can Brock Lesnar, neither can Bobby Lashley. And what do all of them now have in common? Well, other than, I know Brock's not here, but they all have a manager that speaks for them. And yeah, MVP is part of the group. They're a team. But really, he's the manager of the group. He's the spokesperson of the group. He's the mouthpiece. And they pick up where those guys falter. They pick up their weaknesses and hide them. And that's exactly what you could do for Apollo Crews and others. I mean, managers are a lost art, and you can call them whatever you want. You can call them their advocates. You can call them managers. You can call them, what does Paul Heyman call himself now? Like the tribal or the council, the special council. Like, yeah, I don't care. Whatever label you want to put on them, they're managers. So yes, it's a lost art that it could really breathe new life into Apollo Crews, and this match was fine. I mean, it was kind of like your typical Monday Night Raw match. It wasn't anything different, really. I mean, Bobby Lashley won and retained, and I don't know where this really leaves Apollo Crews. Maybe he goes to Raw Underground tonight.
Oh, God, no, please. I'll tell you one thing. I was happy there was no underground segments at all with this. That is, like, hands down making this almost an A for a show.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, it would kind of be weird that if a Raw Underground was put on a pay-per-view, given it's not a Monday Night Raw. I mean, I'm glad, though, but I could see them trying to sneak that in. I mean, I could see them being like, well, yeah, it's not Raw, but people like this. No, I don't think most people do. I think most people don't know what the hell Monday Night or Raw Underground is, but I'm going to get down a rabbit hole with that. So I'm going to move on. The Raw Tag Team Championship with Andrade and Angel Garza versus the Street Profits. Once again, Michael, I'm going to toss this to you. What'd you think?
Okay, so first of all, I don't know what this love of the Street Profits is at this point, because they are a talented team. Obviously, it looks like they're teasing a heel turn. At least that's the way it looked to me. Dawkins is good. Obviously, they want to push Montez forward, but at his size, I don't ever see him breaking through the glass ceiling. And this is basically going to be their swan song, I think, because after this, they're going to get lost in the mix. I hate to say it, but I think it's true. They used some of the they did the push-up and kick to the guts, which was the move, the American Wolves. The American Wolves, who are an amazing tag team. So it's like they ripped off tag team moves. Honestly, this was a tough one to like. This was the hardest match for me to watch and actually digest because this is a detractor of the show. We all knew who was going to win. And everybody thinks that Andrade and Garza are going to be, just splitting up and destroying each other. And nothing made sense. Like, this had no wheels. It was just generic match number 2. That's what it felt like.
Are you in a position where you need to sell your home? Perhaps you're facing financial difficulties, or you're facing a foreclosure, a divorce, or maybe you're just relocating because of retirement. Maybe there are some other debt issues, and you just need to sell your home. Well, here is a great solution for you. And that solution is Bright Realty Investment. They are a leading real estate solutions company, and their mission is to work hand in hand with all parties to handle every situation with the utmost professionalism and care. So if you're in a particularly stressful financial situation right now and you need to protect your credit, then don't waste another minute. Head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com. That's brightrealtyinvestment.com. And when you go to the website, there's a really easy form you fill out. It's right at the top, and they'll get back to you immediately. So why wait? Don't let that divorce, that retirement, or other bad debt situation take control of your life. Take control back and head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com where they can buy your house, protect your credit, and get your life back on track. Again, head on over to brightrealtyinvestment.com. Yeah, it did. It felt very Monday Night Raw, kind of middle of the show match, and that's what this was. And I've said this from the beginning too. And that why are we supposed to care about Angel Garza and Andrade feuding? I mean, they're two heels that have never gotten along from the beginning, so there's less interest times two. And then they continue it, and we don't get an explanation. Strike three, you're out. I mean, I don't understand how fans are even supposed to care that these two have a problem with one another. Like, what is the interest? Does any fan have any vested interest in those two having a problem with one another? The answer is no. Everyone knows too, I'm not a big fan of the Street Profits from a personality perspective. I find them extremely obnoxious.
Yes.
I do not like their style of presentation, of their promo delivery. Everything has to end with "We want the smoke." The Montez Ford Red Cup. I'm just not a fan of their ring personalities. Like, from an athletic standpoint, I think they're fine. And obviously Montez Ford is the star of the group when it comes to that. From an in-ring perspective, they're fine. They're good. They're really good. But I just find them almost impossible to root for, given their arrogance and their speaking in riddles and their whole personality is extremely obnoxious to me. So I really didn't have a vested interest in this match at all. I mean, I would like to have seen Andrade and Angel Garza go on a run. Like, why is this a problem in a division as a whole for the company that is extremely thin with tag teams, that you're trying to break up yet another team? It just shows you that the tag team division has never been and probably never will be a priority for Vince McMahon. But the ending was weird on this, as Dawkins gives Andrade a power bomb and he kicks out at 2, but the ref calls for the bell. So I don't know the problem there. I don't know what the point of that was. Again, just a ref miscall. I mean, referees are making terrible calls all over the place with stopping matches out of their own discretion. There was a tag team match on Raw a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember what it was, but the referee actually called for a disqualification because the illegal person who didn't tag in made contact with the illegal person. I mean, that's what happens all match. I mean, that's just what happens. That's just what happens every single moment of the tag team match. But hey, this match was what it was. I hope we never see these two teams in the ring in the near future. And I don't know. I'm not big on the Street Profits. You're right. This is a downer for me.
One thing I wanted to follow up with is rereading my notes. I had a lot of stuff jumbled together. So it was Garza and Andrade. They were using the American Wolves finisher, which is the push in the air and then kick to the gut, which is a really awesome finisher because it was different. However, what I noticed mostly is that Montez and Ford were wrestling like singles wrestlers, and Garza and Andrade were actually the ones wrestling like a tag team. If you watch, they did a lot of tag team maneuvers, especially the stuff when they were on the apron and things like that. Like, they really worked like a tag team, and that kind of blew my mind.
I didn't catch that. That's interesting. I did not catch that fact that it was in terms of chemistry, that there is a difference between two guys being singles competitors being put in a tag match and a true tag team. So yes, that's a good point to make, and I did not notice that. So, okay, I'm going to move on from the 24/7 title issue that didn't happen. The SmackDown Women's Championship. Nikki Cross was unable to compete, and it was an open challenge. Bayley says, "Oh, no one's stepping up." So then we get Asuka. Out of all people, Asuka appears and accepts the challenge as if nobody wants an opportunity at the SmackDown Women's Championship. Asuka, who's the Raw Women's Champion, appears. And yes, on paper, that is like a pay-per-view main event quality match on paper. But
agreed.
It's fine. Both are really good, and they've had really, really good matches together. That's not the problem. The problem is WWE completely overlooking any other woman that was going to be in this match or could have been in this match to get an opportunity. No one stepped up except Asuka. Did she shove herself to the front of the line? And it was a missed opportunity, again, for exposing maybe new talent. You all know that Bayley was going to retain here, even if Nikki Cross showed up. It was just a means to an end to get Sasha Banks there. That's all this was. It wouldn't have mattered who came out there. So if it didn't matter who came out, why not make this an opportunity for new talent? Somebody that you may have forgotten about. Where the hell's Carmella? I mean, like, there are things you could do to either reinvigorate a new talent, or reinvigorate an old talent, or bring in somebody new and challenge and make it interesting. Instead, we got, like brand name women out there with a lot of name recognition, but that's not the point. I just don't understand Asuka being the one to come out. I was not happy about that at all. Yeah, it was okay as far as the match goes. And yeah, Bayley got herself intentionally disqualified. Makes total sense. The real story here that we all were just waiting to get to was Sasha. Is Sasha going to show up? And she did. She got a small measure of revenge, as I did predict that it would be a small measure. You're not going to get the whole entire meal. It's just the appetizer, as you like to make food references. There's
Yes.
one for you. It was an appetizer for what the fans want to see, and that's the full meal. We want the full Retribution. Pun intended, I guess. And we got a small piece of it, but what was weird is the way that Sasha did it. I mean, did she forget how to swing a chair at some points? Like, there were some points where she hit her and then just stood there. I'm like, she tried to break your neck. Like, why are you not wailing away? And I understand we're not supposed to get all of it, and I agree, but it just was just bizarre that she just stood there and stared and just clamped her neck. And, like, I don't know. I had a problem with her timing of not being aggressive enough, and you should be more angry, but I understand it was still mission accomplished for me on this one. How about you?
Okay, my thing with Sasha was she sold. You're supposed to have a messed up neck. She just kept holding it and holding it and holding it. And we don't have enough of that today, like people selling and actually selling in the right way. So if she's coming off this injury, she's actually showing she's still in this injury. So I like that. However, waffling somebody with a chair and then not doing anything and just standing there like I'm Gomer Pyle, it doesn't make sense. We need follow-up, okay? And she didn't show follow-up on that. Aside from that, the Asuka versus Bayley, like you said, I mean, Shayna Baszler should have been the first one out that door. There are so many people that you could name that could have came out that door. People from NXT, somebody from Retribution, all right? Like, show me that initiative. I was actually shocked I didn't see any Retribution. And, honestly, like, it would have made more sense to have somebody besides Asuka, but it also shows you it's pre-taped. And I'm going to get to another situation on the showing it was pre-taped in a bit, but when it comes down to it, I'm with you. There's other people. It didn't have to be Asuka twice, and they had enough time. If you pre-tape something, you've got days to redo it and redo it and redo it, which they did tonight. So I wish, honestly, like Shayna and Nia, I'm not a big fan of it, but it ties them up, so it has something for them to do. There are other people. There's so many other people. I mean, what's Alexa Bliss doing? And she is the epitome of evil these days, so that would have been the perfect person. So that's my take on that.
There are so many women that could have had an opportunity. Yes, they weren't going to win. That's not the point. It just, Asuka again? I mean, this, I think, this is one of those moments, and I said this to myself as I was sitting there, that if fans were in attendance and they did this, they would have booed the Asuka coming out. They would have just flat out booed it. And this is where WWE gets away with it because there's nobody there. But I was sitting there very disappointed. I'm like, really? Like, why? Is Asuka the only person on the roster interested in a championship opportunity? I don't know. I was really down on the selection. Not down on the Asuka versus Bayley. That's not the point. It's the selection of double dutying Asuka on a pay-per-view that you already are defending your championship and you are not on the SmackDown roster. So what if you won? Like, I mean, it's just bizarre. I mean, there's just so many things that make no sense. But all right. Any final thoughts on that before we move on?
The only thing that kind of bothered me, and it wasn't really that big of a deal, but Bayley gets hit in the back with a chair, and then she slides into she gets thrown in the ring, and then she's standing up in a couple seconds. Her selling wasn't that good. Usually she's spot on with selling, but it wasn't tonight.
Yes, no, I did notice that too, and I also noticed the selling from Bayley or from Sasha. Very good. We do not get that enough. The neck brace, I don't think is utilized enough. It makes sense that she's in a neck brace. It makes sense she's still in pain. I'm 100% on board for that. It's weird that she could swing a chair and then had a problem with that after one swing, but then was able to wail on Bayley with a kendo stick multiple times like nothing was wrong. Again, we're nitpicking here. It was still mission accomplished for me. I'm still interested in seeing Sasha versus Bayley. It didn't take away from this at all. It was just one of those things that it's just micromanaging details that you're just like, come on, keep me in the moment. And those little things take you out, and then I don't know. So, okay, on to this big semi-main event here. Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. Oh boy. I have a lot of good and a lot of bad to say. Well, not a lot of bad. I have some bad and a lot of good to say about this, though. But I'll toss it to you first as I gather my thoughts.
Okay, first of all, I love Randy Orton. I've been a fan of him since he first debuted. But is it me, or doesn't he look like he aged 10 years and 10 days?
Yes.
That bothered me. I was like, is Randy sick? Is something wrong? He can still perform, but he's definitely lost more than one step. And he can still put on a better match than a lot of people. Okay, so I'm not taking anything away from Randy Orton, but it was so weird looking at him. And, there was a day when I looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, I got crow's feet, I'm in my 40s, and I had to realize I'm getting older. But it was so weird because I seen him a couple weeks ago and he looked like Randy Orton. And he just didn't look like Randy Orton. He looked skinny. He looked older. And that hurt this match a lot because he looked, I wouldn't say dominant. It was 50-50, but the fact that you had the big slow, and because that's what he is, and you had Christian, everybody else, HBK interfering in this match. They're tainting Drew McIntyre's championship run. They did this with Jericho. They did this with Seth Rollins on his first run. They for some reason, he must have fell out of favor. And I'm going to put this out there, okay? I think that Vince McMahon realizes that Drew McIntyre, his so-called chosen guy from years ago, he was actually right on. And that's the guy that Roman Reigns is supposed to be. They look alike. They're about similar size. Actually, Drew's bigger than him. And Drew is a better performer. And he's having some kind of I want to say a buyer's remorse knowing that he has two similar champions. So if he continues to push Roman as this monster heel, he's got to continue to push, Drew as this face. But he's burying him. He's trying to find a way to make Roman look better. That's a conspiracy theory, kind of whatever. But what I noticed is throughout the evening, between their matches, between Orton and McIntyre and between, Roman, they broke over 3 tables. How many tables are in the place? I'm just saying. Just something we should look at. And then Samoa Joe sounded like JYD, it was kind of funny, but it's to me, I loved the match. It was good. Those guys bled, and they got hurt, and you could see their bodies were beat. But it's this whole thing is tainting McIntyre's run, and I just feel bad for him because he started out with such a bang, and they made sure that he was a champion, and he did things. He defended his title 2 times in one night, and then I don't know what was up with Big Show, but he looked old as dirt, and he still has the weakest choke slam in the business. Can I get an amen on that?
Amen. Yes. No.
Thank you. Yeah, he has always had the worst choke slam, and they made McIntyre look terrible tonight. That was my thought. Even in it was just bad, especially Randy being. I don't know if he was out of shape or if he's just getting older, but being skinnier, looking old, everything else, they made him look really, really bad tonight.
So let me start off by saying yes. As far as the match quality goes, good, very good. I liked the story of the match. We all know how great of a heel Randy Orton has been. We all know how great of a babyface champion Drew has been. It has been as good as advertised since he became champion in April. Now, the biggest gripe that I have with this match is not the physicality. Both guys beat the hell out of one another. The effort was there. Nobody pulled punches. It was a well-structured match. It didn't, to me, it didn't drag. Like, the time was good. It didn't go on too long. It wasn't too short. I liked that. But the biggest problem I have is exactly what you said. You had Drew McIntyre get assistance from 3 different people as a babyface, and no one says anything about it. And yeah, the announcers are justifying it that the summer of Randy Orton, attacking everybody or attacking legends has come back to haunt him and all this. And yes, that is true that Randy Orton had this coming, but not during a championship match to aid your babyface to look like he needed help to beat the heel. Because at the very time that Randy Orton was going to punt Drew McIntyre, which would have been completely legal in this match, you had Big show up and pull Randy Orton out of the ring and give him the chokeslam. Otherwise, the match could have been over right there. Randy Orton would have become the new WWE champion. I don't like that I felt that Drew would have lost had he not had help. That's not how you want your babyface to look. Nonetheless, from 3 different people. A chokeslam from Big Show, a bunch of punches and kicks from Christian in the backstage area, and then sweet chin music from Shawn Michaels to Randy Orton to put an icing on the cake. I mean, yes, Randy Orton needs to be pummeled. He deserves to be pummeled. But not during a championship match when Drew is your champion that you've built to making and done a damn good job with, and then having these legends come in to assist him. It's not the right time to do it. It should have been done during a time when, say, Randy Orton had a bunch of guys on his side helping him, and they come out to even the odds. That's what should have happened. I actually predicted that Retribution was going to come out and cost Drew McIntyre the championship. That was my pick, and Randy Orton was going to become your new WWE champion. But that didn't happen, and Drew McIntyre retains. I don't agree with it. I think Drew would have been just fine if he had gone off and now was in chase mode with Randy as champion. To me, that would have been more interesting. And I would have held off on Randy Orton losing any match, but I mean, that's long gone, but any match until Edge comes back. I mean, they were building the heat really, really well, and now Randy Orton is probably out on Raw saying that had it not been for the help of our elders, that you would have lost the championship. I mean, Randy Orton's got a true gripe as a heel for something that a babyface typically complains about, that they're playing the numbers game on the backside. So, I was fine with Drew winning, but I think a better alternative was really Randy Orton becoming WWE champion. I actually would have preferred that.
It was sloppy. It was really sloppy. They made Drew look really weak. And, the only person I was surprised didn't come out was Beth Phoenix. And that would have completed, everything. But it just makes Drew look so bad as a champion. And Randy, especially, I don't know. I don't want to say he's out of shape because he's in way better shape than me. But he looked old, and I hate to say that, but he didn't look like the same guy he was like a month ago. and maybe just COVID, not going to the gym, whatever else, and maybe, he's about to retire. But brass tacks and baseball bats, when it comes down to it, man, he could still go. He was, you can tell he's getting a little bit older, but then those hardcore moments, they sold those, they did those, they cut themselves. I really didn't want to see them bleed. Blood is necessary. It was the right amount of blood. Actually, it was actually the right amount, because it wasn't gushing. It wasn't a Dusty Rhodes like dog collar match, but it was amazing. As far as how much they could put their bodies through, but it's still, at the end, it diminished. It diminished Drew so much, and I don't want to see his title run tainted, and especially to a person that he couldn't defeat, who really did not look like the person he was supposed to face. It's like Andre the Giant showing up for something and being 200 pounds lighter. It just doesn't make sense. So, with that being said, it wasn't a bad match. It just, there was an X factor that was kind of missing. I think it was between Randy looking old, and no offense to him, dude, I'm older than him, but it was that, and then Drew needing so much help to put him away. That's what detracted this from being an A show.
That's the biggest problem I had, and yes, the creative team and the announcers are going to try to cover this by saying, oh, Randy Orton had it coming, but you're not looking at the side effect. The massive side effect is your champion looks like he needed help. And that is the biggest thing and the biggest problem that WWE either overlooked or they just didn't care about. And they were thinking, well, the fans just want to see him, the fans just want to see them get revenge and have Randy Orton leave in an ambulance. Well, I'm okay with waiting, because that is Edge's victory. I have said this over and over. Why Keith Lee beat Randy Orton, I'll never know. Why Drew McIntyre beat him with a backslide at Payback, I think it was, I don't know. To me, Randy Orton was doing so well, and they were doing so good with him building heat week after week. Nobody could get the best of him for months. And then Keith Lee just beats him out of nowhere clean. Drew McIntyre gets a, quote, lucky victory over Randy Orton, so he's lost 2. And now he lost a third match here with the help of 3 legends, and yes, Ric Flair to drive him off. I was wondering if Ric Flair was going to somehow do a figure 4, and they didn't do it. And I get why. He's 70-some years old. You don't want to risk it. But so he could drive the car or drive the ambulance, and that's the limit of what they could do with him, and I totally get it. But yeah, it did sour the victory for Drew for me. He got the punt, so it's all apropos and very poetic that he got a kick to the head just like he's been doing. But I don't know. I was
Didn't it look like it missed? Didn't it look like it missed?
Big time.
Yes. Okay. I don't like to cut you off when you're talking, but because we know each other, but son of a gun, man, that looked like it missed by a mile.
It wasn't even close. It was. It looked like it didn't even look like he made contact with anything. If you're kicking someone's skull, there should be a little bit of a slowdown in your kick as you kick the person in the head. And this was just like he kicked thin air, and that's exactly what he did. And I get it, because it's a seriously risky move to get any closer than he maybe have done. It was very obvious that he just kicked thin air. I agree, but. Any final thoughts on the match here with Randy and Drew McIntyre?
No, I think we got a bit more than what we expected. I think that, like we discussed, it's just we had a missed move, and we had a champion whose reign is going to be diminished or have an asterisk next to it because he needed somebody's help, and that's not fair. Considering that this is my thought process too, and like I said, he looks like Roman Reigns. He's a better performer, and nothing against Roman, but he's a better performer. So I think Vince wants to make him look bad so Roman looks better.
Could be. Every time I say I don't know what WWE's doing, I just look to all roads lead to Roman Reigns. So, that's just what I do. When I'm lost in WWE's booking, I go, what would they do to make Roman Reigns look good? Or how do they put the championship on Roman? And 9 times out of 10, that's how you get to the logic of what they're doing. And maybe it's just the battle of the long, dark, silky hair champions. I mean, they both could probably do a sponsorship for Dove or something over the next few months. I don't know. I mean, like really, or some kind of conditioner. I mean, I don't know, but I think that, and somebody pointed this to me. I don't know. I know who it was. I'd give them credit. That Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre could be a possible WrestleMania main event this coming year. And yes, they met at WrestleMania before, but this is much different. Things are much different now. So could you see that happening, Roman versus Drew at Mania?
Yes, I could see it on a much bigger level, but you excuse me, a little raspy. You have to actually make Drew look as good as he was before this pay-per-view, and you can't. First of all, if you're going to keep Reigns as a heel, man, it'll work, but what's your SmackDown babyface situation? It's Strowman and Bueller. It's not a good situation. Whereas I think that Drew has a better situation over on Raw. To make it happen, of course, you have to do your superstar shakeup and all that goofy stuff. But it could happen. It could really happen. We just need momentum, and we need Drew to not take it down to a level that is so diminishing and so sad that he needs 3 people's help, 3 old superstars' help. That's a key word too. They're old. They're retired.
Yep.
So
yeah, no,
that's how I feel.
No. And that the weird thing is Randy Orton is going to come out on Raw and probably say these exact things, that you needed help. Like, that is not a heel reasoning. That's a babyface reason. Like, you have babyfaces coming out and complaining about that had you not gotten the help from so-and-so or whoever, that I would be standing here with the championship. And instead, it's Randy Orton saying these things. I mean, again, he may not say that, but I don't know how you don't. Even as a heel, it would just be kind of stupid to overlook it, because you could say that is your logic. That's your reasoning and justification for earning and being rewarded with another championship match, is that you didn't do it by yourself. You needed help. And I can't believe I'm saying that about Drew. I shouldn't be saying that. But so one other thing that didn't happen at the pay-per-view, as we have gone through all the matches now, is no show from Retribution. Are you surprised by this?
I'm actually happy by it. I think that this whole angle will be scrapped. I honestly think, I'm glad that they're giving Dijakovic and Dio Madden and everybody else a chance, but it's not their time. This is silly. This is not the NWO. This isn't some kind of major storyline. It was silly the way they had Molotov cocktails, throwing them at Transformers. I'm a human being. I'm smarter than that. I know if you do that, you're going to get arrested. Now they've been signed, and honestly, I don't. And especially after CM Punk eviscerated them on Twitter, this is one of those things from the Attitude Era with GTV. It might just quietly go away. If they keep it, I don't see it having much legs underneath it. I really think this is going to die a sad, slow death. Or hopefully abrupt, but a sad, slow death. What? I hear you laughing. Why are you laughing?
No, just because it's just so, you're just so straightforward with this. You're just so down on it. It's hilarious. You just want it to flatline on the operating table. You just kill it. And I'm with you from the perspective of, this is a very poorly executed version of what they probably envisioned. They envision this, and I was Zach Smith, who I did the pre-show with on Saturday, said that they have a seed of something really good here, and they do. They have something there that, if they execute it right, could be really good. Unfortunately, the execution and the long-term booking or thinking of how to introduce these guys and gals was very poorly done from just a logical perspective. I mean, I'm really, really trying not to go into all the reasons why, because it will go into a rant. But the biggest problem I have is, if you destroy property from a company that you despise, if you attack their employees, whether they're competitors or administrative staff or whatever, do you think that company is going to reward you with contracts and give you money to be there, and then have the announcer say that they can do anything to anyone at any time? Yeah, that is among many other things, that makes no sense. Nothing, no company in the history of existence would ever reward people that aren't supposed to be there to begin with giving them money to then come in and do exactly the thing that they're trying to get them out for. I mean, it's so ridiculous. I wish this was in front of fans, because the fans would boo this out of the building. I mean, they just would.
No, I absolutely agree with you, and I absolutely agree. Like, I love Zach, and I think, like, you guys, we all think wrestling in different ways, but we all think about real life. And obviously, you know where I live, and I've dealt with some stuff in the last week or so, and it's been kind of weird. I've had curfews. I've had to be in my house, and that's real. And if you're outside, believe me, there's going to be a spotlight on you telling you go back into your apartment or your house or whatever else. So, with that being said, the only way they could ever pull off Retribution, are you ready for it?
Please.
Hogan.
Hogan?
Yeah.
How?
He's just a jerk leader. He was NWO. They keep him on the payroll, but no one likes him because he's an open racist. So, it just makes sense.
Yeah. I think the problem is Hogan can't do anything physical, nor would I want him to ever do anything physical again.
Neither would I. I just want him as a figurehead.
Yeah. Yeah. Star power. Maybe star power is what's missing from this, or maybe just an explanation of how they got contracts. I mean, just tie up. These aren't even like little loose ends. These are massive, gaping crater holes in the story.
Exactly.
It's not like they just nitpick. This is not nitpicking. This is just. This is like kindergarten storytelling. I mean, seriously. Like, how do you get from destroying property to being rewarded by the company that you've destroyed the property of? How does that happen? Does their legal team exist?
Exactly. That's why I said it makes sense with Hogan.
Yep.
Because he's terrible. Everybody knows he was a terrible in-ring performer, but he put asses in seats. I'm sorry to use that.
He did.
But he would be the person. Like, if you didn't use him, you could probably use other, like Kevin Nash, which nobody knows or nobody wants to see in a ring again, but as the figurehead. I'm talking about the figurehead, the person that negotiated and made the deal with Vince and stuff like that, like the story. I'm talking about the story, the person. And the craziest way you want to do it, are you ready for this? The Undertaker.
The Undertaker?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
The Undertaker forced himself to retire, but he wants retribution on all the damage that's been done to his body.
This might work. Again, this is probably not even in the stratosphere of their thinking, but it's probably the only way. The fact that we have to go to these extremes to make this work,
I know,
is telling of just kill this and pretend this never happened. I mean, they might want to just cut their losses. I mean, if they think they can save this, and I completely could be wrong, and I could be eating my words, and people could attack me on Twitter, which I'm actually kind of back, by the way, at wrestling_audio. People could great, and they bury me, fine. But my odds, and if you were going to do a betting line on this, the money is on this thing is going to die. And probably a slow death. WWE probably won't just dismiss this like Vince McMahon blowing up his limousine or the anonymous Raw general manager or any of the storylines, GTV or the anonymous hacker that appeared and disappeared and he's gone now. I mean, all these things that just kind of appear and then just go away. I mean, WWE has had this happen before, but a story of this magnitude that they've been talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, I doubt they're just going to cut it off and pretend it didn't exist, but I think that's the best way to do it. Just pretend it never, ever existed.
Unfortunately, it's going to go the way of the Nexus, and I feel like it's going to be a couple of wrestlers that just beat them out of whatever, take off their masks, and then their careers are ruined, just like everybody else in the Nexus. It's kind of sad, but it's really true. I mean, you can't create something without an end game. And like Vince, he's done it so many times. And Bischoff, he did it with the NWO. He didn't have an end game. He'll actually say that. He's like, if you don't have an end game, you don't know what to do. Vince doesn't have follow-up with this. It was so stupid. I just hate – you can break real laws and, okay, we're going to Molotov cocktail a transformer, which is owned by the city, but we're cool. I don't want to get too into this. I'll get worked up on it, but, and I've been good. I haven't sworn once. So, it just, I don't know. Retribution, like I said, Hogan is their only chance to do something goofy and be like, because he was blackballed from the Hall of Fame, he wants Retribution.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm for it.
It'll be garbage, but
but it'll be at least it'll be garbage that you enjoyed, like your guilty pleasure. Like, this is terrible, but I kind of want to see how bad it is. Like it's like a car accident. Like, you want to look, but do you really? I mean, but you can't look away, because then you can't unsee it. So, yeah. But right now, it's just so illogical. It's so far detached from reality. The weeks and weeks and weeks that they're not supposed to be there, yet they're still there and still getting on-air time, and they're still getting into the arena with no resistance, and they're actually somehow even got graphics up. They've got apparently they've got a switch that they can flicker the lights to let people know they're going to surprise attack them, which is an oxymoron. I mean, it's just so much stuff. It's so not thought through. They just come up with this idea in a production meeting. This is the way it's come across anyway. They come across, or they have this great idea in a production meeting, at least the seed of one, as Zach said, and they present it to Vince, and Vince is like, well, that's good. You know what? We could do something. And then someone's like, well, Vince, what's the destination? Well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll put masks on them, and, we can figure it out as we go. I mean, that's unfortunately how it's come across. And it's okay. I'm going to stop, too, because I'm going to start getting all heated.
I know, like, it's anybody who's a little bit older like us and like watched before the Attitude Era and stuff like that, and it's nothing against anybody who didn't. It's just you see wrestling and you're just like, what is this trash? Sometimes you see a segment and you're going, why am I seeing out the eyes of the wrestler or all the cinematic stuff? It irritates you, it gets under your skin, and it is what it is with today, and I hate to use that term, but the fact is they haven't used it tonight, or yesterday, excuse me, and that made me happy that we didn't do cinematics, we didn't see Retribution, so maybe somebody's seeing something somewhere, and there's a voice of good reason. So I'm hoping for that. In the meantime, I'm hoping Sami Zayn continues to be a beast as an IC champ, although he's looking a lot like Colonel De Beers. I think that Shinsuke and Cesaro need a lot more love, and I think that Drew McIntyre should be a champ who does what he did a month ago and 2 months ago, and not what he did yesterday.
No, they took a big step back with Drew yesterday. But again, the good, as I'm trying to transition back to the light and get out of this darkness of Retribution. Yeah, Sami Zayn, I loved him as IC champion before the pandemic when he didn't allow Braun to get a single finger on him in that match, in the handicap match that he ended up capturing the Intercontinental Championship from Braun Strowman. I hope maybe they revisit that and tie up that loose end, because Braun Strowman chasing Sami Zayn was entertaining as hell for me. I really, really loved that. And I know Braun is a heel, and also Sami's a heel. And I mean, there's things you can do, right? I mean, so, but yeah, I'm high on a lot of things in WWE right now, with Roman Reigns killing it in the heel role and continues to evolve. And again, Sami Zayn is champion. Bayley doing a great job as SmackDown Women's Champion. There's a lot of good to talk about. It just spirals out of control when you talk about Retribution. But any final thoughts on anything as far as the product goes?
As far as the product goes, like I said, tonight was a B+ show. I think it could have been an A+ show, but there's, like I said, the Drew thing. But aside from that, it was a solid show, and there was a lot of great wrestling, and the hardcore stuff was pretty good. The ladder match was obviously match of the night, and they did their best to steer away from the slow climb and always the pushing. It was a really, and Asuka pulling double duty wasn't necessary. So I know I skip around a lot when I speak, but aside from that, it was a really good show. Honestly, there was a lot of good wrestling. It wasn't sports entertainment. For once, I actually felt like I was watching wrestling.
I know, you wonder if Vince was even present for the pay-per-view, and he's coming back like, oh, what did you guys just do? I mean, you wonder if Vince was even there. I mean, because of some of the things that actually happened, and he didn't have his fingers on some kind of cinematic presentation, which was just, again, awesome to finally see them for the first time since the pandemic era started. No cinematic nonsense.
I know.
It was
so good.
Awesome. So, well, before we wrap things up, I know that you have some other shout-outs, but hey, the floor is yours for any shout-outs or anything else that you'd like to say.
Well, our boy DJ Kuzmo sent me a couple of questions, so I want to bounce these off you real quick.
Shoot.
All right. Do you think there's a possibility of Jey Uso joining the Tribal Chief or Samoa Joe moving to SmackDown via the draft to create a faction that will go against the Hurt Business?
All right. So lots of things there. So a faction. I'll take the last one first. Faction versus the Hurt Business. Yeah, there's got to be somebody that eventually stands up besides Retribution, which makes no sense to me that you have a heel faction going against a heel faction. Right? I mean,
exactly.
Why is the heel faction standing up for Raw? That tells you they don't have a babyface faction. Seth somehow doesn't have disciples, even though he's a messiah. That doesn't make sense to me either. Seth really, really needs disciples, and he's just killing them off. AOP gets fired. He basically banished Murphy. So there has to be a faction, yes. I would agree with that, to go against the Hurt Business. The second question about Samoa Joe going drafted to SmackDown, I don't know. I think he's kind of found a nice little comfy home on Raw with Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton. I don't think they would do that. I don't think they would break up the band especially with Corey Graves and Michael Cole, which to me are the superior, at least in WWE's eyes, the superior team. And I would say no, but it's possible. I would actually like to see Samoa Joe back in the ring, if that's what he meant. So. And the first question was what?
Is there a possibility of Jey Uso joining the Tribal Chief?
Ooh. Not right away. I would say not right away. If it's going to happen, it's down the line, because I know it would be a big swerve, but it would just be morbidly impossible to believe that Jey Uso would join him, given the insane beatdown and just merciless beatdown. I think it would also take away from what Roman did. It would take away from the sympathy of Jey Uso if that happened, because if Jey Uso joins him, then it's like, oh, well, he joined him. I don't feel so bad for him anymore, and it kind of detracts from what Roman did and building his heel character. So down the line maybe, but not in the near future.
I get it. It could be sloppy storytelling.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to skip his second question because we basically answered it with everything that we talked about. But his third question was, what's next for Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton? A final match at Hell in a Cell, an emerging new feud for another, or a brand invitational?
Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell, to me, is the blow-off of programs that are deserving of being in the cell. Not every match should be at inside the cell, and there's been a lot of matches that have come up during the pay-per-view cycle that are not deserving of the cell. I am a big proponent of not even putting it on the damn schedule. It's just another gimmick that WWE tries to use to market their pay-per-views that detracts from the actual match itself and what the match means, the Hell in a Cell match itself.
Agreed.
Same with the Chamber. I mean, I don't need gimmick matches being promoted as part of a pay-per-view marketing scheme. I need it to mean something, and instead they built it into the schedule. Nonetheless, to answer his question, I get off track so easy. Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre are deserving of inside the cell. I would say just past the test of being inside the cell, and worthy of it. And it ends there. I think it ends there with, oh boy, now I'm booking myself into a corner. I keep saying Orton wins. I keep saying Orton's going to win, but I think if this happens, he has to win it at Hell in a Cell, leading to an Edge return.
If you look at how much he's let himself go, I think he's about ready to retire. And I hate to say he let himself go, but he's gotten older, and I'm old. So I'm thinking that maybe he's going to call it a day and hang it up. 14. They said he was a 14-time world champion, but what did they say at the pay-per-view? It was like a matched or something like that. I didn't understand the verbiage completely, but it was like a 14-time unparalleled champion or something like that. And it's like, wait a minute, like Cena's had 16, Flair's had 16, Jared Lawler's had like 40.
Triple H isn't far behind. Yeah,
exactly. So it was really weird that they said that. They made that a note. And, I mean, if he's going to hang up the boots at a Hell in a Cell, if they did what they did tonight in a Hell in a Cell, I'd buy that.
Yep.
But for God's sake, please, no more Elimination Chambers. That's the worst match in the world to me. But I don't want to get into that. We're neither here nor there. I hate that match. It's too gimmicky, too much science, too much not really caring about like a real match, not really, wrestling. It's just, you're just waiting for the last person to come out of the chamber, and that's what sells the whole thing. Is who's the last person? It's,
same for the Rumble. I mean, we're all who's number 30, right? Like the Rumble's on a bigger scale, but I mean the Rumble doesn't have the whole cell or the actual cage involved. But man, we're going down the rabbit hole again.
I'm sorry.
No. This is how
me.
This is how hours go by. No, this is how hours go by with wrestling. But yeah, no, DJ Kuzma, of course, one of the biggest fans and biggest listeners of the show, and we appreciate it for the questions. So, and anything else? Did you have any other questions or any other things you want to share?
I'm glad to be back on the show. I miss you guys. Like I said at the beginning of the show, don't catcall women. They don't like it. And, I always say, like, help each other out. One of the biggest inspirational quotes I saw was, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle because the flame goes on. So let's just keep helping each other. Aside from that, I love you guys. I miss you. So
appreciated that. No, that's a good analogy. I like that visual because I'm picturing a candle lighting another candle, which lights another candle. It's like a domino effect and doesn't lose anything. Yeah, that's I like that. I don't know where you saw that, but that's a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, the whole cackling and catcalling women. I mean, I don't even know where guys learn that. Like, what? I don't even understand where it's learned that it's a good method of picking at women. It is the worst way you could possibly. Burst method you could use to pick up women. It's just terrible. I mean, I've seen it firsthand too. So, but again, thank you so much, Michael. I'm really glad to have you back. I'm glad that things are going well with you, and you had a great interaction with Kristen. Again, shout out to her, and that we'll definitely have to be doing this again soon.
Definitely, and I love you guys, and if you want to check me out on Twitter, it's @144captain. I'd love to hear your feedback, anything you want to ask me. I'd love to hear about it. So I love wrestling, and I love you guys. So thank you.
No, thank you so much, Michael, and you have a good night. We'll be in touch very soon.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.